The Iridian Emperor smashed his fist on the table, bellowing in rage as reports flooded in of lowly humans obliterating his mighty space armada. Holoscreens flashed with scenes of destruction, charred Iridian battle cruisers drifting lifeless, once invincible dreadnoughts claved in half by suicidal human ramming attacks. It should have been an easy slaughter of the primitive upstarts, but the Iridians had not counted on human audacity, tenacity, and sheer unhinged recklessness in battle. For months, Iridian battle fleets had prowled the edges of human space, subjugating colony worlds and bombarding Earth's defenders into submission. Humanity's fleets were outgunned and outclassed. Their hulls were thin, their weapons puny. The Iridians came to Earth expecting to wipe out the last human resistance and seize the homeworld for the Emperor. But the humans would not go quietly. If the Iridians wanted Earth, they would pay for every inch in blood. This was humanity's last stand. If the line broke here, extinction awaited. So the Earth Defense Fleet threw itself at the invaders with savage abandon, marshalling every last ship and soul for the ultimate life-or-death battle. The story flashes back to a year before the fateful battle, when Iridian long-range sensors first picked up strange radio signals emanating from an uncharted region of space. Zorax, the cunning head of Iridian Imperial Intelligence, volunteered to lead a covert mission to investigate the primitive species that called itself human. Zorax handpicked a team of his most skilled operatives for the task. They spent weeks studying intercepted human transmissions, learning the languages, customs, and mannerisms of the species. Zorax himself underwent extensive surgical modifications to pass as one of them. His scaly skin and reptilian features reshaped into the visage of a nondescript human male. Arriving in the Sol system undetected, the Iridian spies made planetfall on Earth and seamlessly integrated into human society. Zorax took on the alias of Zach Ryans, a visiting scientist from abroad. His forged credentials granted him access to top research institutions around the globe. At MIT, he marveled at the humans' advances in artificial intelligence and robotics. He watched a demonstration of tiny machines called nanobots that could repair damaged cells from within a human body. The technology was impressive for such a young species. "Dr. Ryans, what do you think of our latest breakthrough?" a human professor asked. Zorax forced a smile. "Very promising, I'd love to learn more." Deep beneath the Nevada desert, Zorax infiltrated the infamous Area 51. Disguised as a high-ranking general, he gained entry to a top-secret lab. Inside, he found not captured alien ships as the humans feared, but experimental weapons that harnessed technologies the Iridians had long ago mastered and surpassed. Still, he made note of the humans' resourcefulness and relentless drive to innovate. Over months, Zorax compiled a dossier on Earth and its inhabitants. He studied their wars, how they fought with such tenacity and adapted in the face of near-certain defeat. He pored over data on their exponential technological progress and tireless ingenuity. A grim picture emerged. Left unchecked, these humans could one day threaten Iridian supremacy. They had to be dealt with while still primitive. Zorax stood before the Imperial Council, his dossier in hand. "I urge the Emperor to launch an immediate invasion of Earth. The humans are weak now, but they advance quickly. They pose an existential threat to our empire." But the councillors scoffed, their arrogance blinding them to the danger. "You overestimate them, Zorax. These humans are far beneath our concern. Primitives from a backwater planet challenge the Iridian Empire?" The Emperor waved his hand dismissively. "We will not waste ships and soldiers to swat a gnat. The humans are nothing. We will ignore them." Zorax bowed his head, masking his frustration. He knew that one day the Iridians would pay dearly for their hubris. The humans were coming, and heaven help the galaxy when they arrived. Zorax paced in his private chambers, his claws clicking against the polished floor. The Council's dismissal of the human threat gnawed at him. He pulled up the latest intelligence reports on his holoscreen. Human space agencies were making progress at an alarming rate. At this pace, they would achieve interstellar travel within decades. Zorax could not let that happen. He activated an encrypted comm channel. Agents, new orders. Infiltrate these human organizations. NASA, SpaceX, others. Impede their efforts by any means necessary. Sabotage, misinformation, assassinations if required, but leave no trace. These primitives cannot suspect our involvement yet. The replies came swiftly. Understood, Commander Zorax. At Cape Canaveral, a disguised Iridian operative snuck into a restricted area. Reaching the prototype fusion engine, he placed a small device inside the reactor housing and slipped away. Minutes later, an explosion rocked the launch pad, sending debris flying. Humans screamed and fled as emergency teams rushed to contain the blaze. In the Mars Mission Control Center, another operative discreetly tapped on her console. On screen, the video feed from the manned spacecraft flickered and cut out. Frantic engineers tried to re-establish contact, but it was no use. The ship and its crew had vanished without a trace. Mournful silence fell over the room. Similar incidents occurred across the globe, each one a crippling blow to the human space program. Governments pointed fingers and hurled accusations. Public faith faltered as missions failed and body counts rose. Humanity's reach for the stars seemed to be slipping away. But there was one who refused to give in. In a modest lab, Daniel Thompson hunched over his workbench, soldering circuitry for a new prototype. Designs and equations covered the walls. Daniel barely noticed the TV droning in the background, reporting on another budget cut to space exploration. His focus was consumed by the device taking shape under his hands. "The EM shield emitter is ready for testing," he called out. His assistant hurried over. "Are you sure about this, Daniel? This tech is beyond anything I've seen. How did you even—" "Just a hunch I've been chasing. If I'm right, this could change everything. Protect our ships from any threats out there." Daniel placed the emitter inside a test chamber and powered it on. A shimmering energy field sprung to life, humming with potential. He allowed himself a rare smile. Humanity wasn't done fighting yet. Word of the successful test soon reached certain ears. Daniel answered a knock at his lab door and found himself face to face with a gruff EDF general. "Dr. Thompson, I presume. Your work has impressed some important people. I'm here to offer you a chance to put those talents to good use in service of your planet." The general revealed the existence of a black-budget EDF project dedicated to building Earth's first warfleet. With his pioneering inventions, Daniel was uniquely qualified to lead the engineering team. Daniel knew what his answer would be. He had dedicated his life to exploring the wonders of the cosmos. But he also knew that for humanity to reach those distant stars, they first had to survive the dangers that awaited, and he would do all he could to ensure that humanity endured, no matter the foes that stood in their way. Zorax hunched over his console, his eyes darting across the screen as he pored over the latest intelligence reports. His network of spies had uncovered a disturbing revelation. A cabal of Iridian scientists and military officers had been secretly collaborating with the Kryn Consortium, a powerful alliance of alien races that had long sought to topple the Iridian Empire. The conspirators had been funneling advanced Iridian technology and classified information to the Kryn, all in exchange for promises of power and influence in the new galactic order they planned to create. The implications of this betrayal hit Zorax like a plasma blast to the gut. If the Kryn gained access to Iridian military secrets and cutting-edge tech, they would become an even more formidable foe. And with humanity's rapid rise as a potential threat, the Empire now faced dangers on two fronts. The combination of these threats could be catastrophic, if not dealt with swiftly. Zorax compiled the evidence and rushed to present his findings to the Imperial Council. He burst into the council chamber, interrupting a heated debate. "My lords, I bring urgent news. We have traitors in our midst, conspiring with the Kryn to overthrow the Empire." The councillors fell silent, their eyes wide with shock. Zorax laid out the evidence, highlighting the scale and severity of the conspiracy. But as he spoke, he noticed some of the councillors exchanging nervous glances. A sinking feeling settled in his stomach. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne, his voice dripping with disdain. "These are baseless accusations, Zorax. You have no proof of this so-called conspiracy. I trust our people implicitly, and I will not tolerate such slander against them." Zorax's jaw clenched. He could see it in their eyes. Many of the councillors were in on the plot. They had already been bought off by the promise of power in a post-Iridian galaxy. His warning was falling on deaf ears because they were the very traitors he sought to expose. The Emperor pointed a clawed finger at Zorax, his eyes flashing with rage. "You dare question the loyalty of this council? You are the traitor here, Zorax. Guards, seize him." Zorax reacted on instinct, his training taking over. He ducked and rolled as the guards lunged for him, their energy pikes crackling. He drew his plasma pistol and fired, dropping 2 guards before sprinting for the exit. Alarms blared throughout the palace as he raced through the corridors, dodging blaster fire from the pursuing guards. He reached his hidden shuttle and leaped inside, punching in coordinates for a remote safehouse. As the shuttle blasted off into space, Zorax's mind raced. He was a fugitive now, branded a traitor by the very empire he had sworn to protect. His former colleagues would stop at nothing to hunt him down and silence him. But Zorax knew he could not give up. The fate of the Iridian Empire and perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance, and with no one else to turn to, he made a desperate decision. He would seek out the humans and offer them his knowledge and aid in the coming war. It was a bitter pill to swallow, allying with a primitive species he had once sought to destroy, but he believed that working with humanity was now the only way to save his own people from destruction and forge a new path for the galaxy. Zorax set course for Earth, his resolve hardening with each passing light year. The die was cast, and he would see this through to the end, whatever the cost. Zorax's shuttle streaked through the void, its sleek hull reflecting the distant light of stars. He had sent an encrypted message to the EDF, requesting a clandestine meeting with their leadership. Now, as his ship approached the coordinates he had been given, he saw a small, unassuming space station growing larger in his view screen. He docked his shuttle and stepped onto the station, his senses on high alert. The airlock hissed open, revealing a trio of armed EDF soldiers. They trained their weapons on him, their faces tense. "I come in peace," Zorax said, raising his hands. "I have vital information for your leaders." The soldiers exchanged glances, then one nodded curtly. "Follow me." They escorted Zorax through the station's stark corridors, passing sealed doors and security checkpoints. Finally, they entered a large room dominated by a holographic display table. Several humans stood around it, their expressions guarded. One man stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied Zorax. "I'm Daniel Thompson, head of EDF Research and Development. I'll be blunt. Why should we trust you, Iridian?" Zorax met his gaze. "Because I have no choice. My people are in grave danger, and so are yours. The Kryn Consortium has infiltrated the highest levels of the Iridian government. They're plotting to overthrow the Empire and seize control of the galaxy, and they won't stop there." He tapped a sequence on his wrist computer, and the display table lit up with images and data. The humans leaned in, their eyes widening as they absorbed the information. "My God," Thompson breathed, "if this is true—" "It is," Zorax said grimly. "The Kryn have been manipulating events for decades. They engineered the conflict between our species, hoping to weaken us both. And now, with human advancements in technology, they see you as a threat to be eliminated." The room fell silent, the weight of Zorax's words sinking in. Finally, Thompson spoke. "What do you propose?" Zorax took a deep breath. "An alliance. I will share my knowledge of Iridian technology and tactics with you. Together we can build a force strong enough to stand against the Kryn and the corrupt elements within my own government." Thompson glanced at his colleagues, seeing the mix of skepticism and calculation in their eyes. He turned back to Zorax. "We'll need assurances, a way to verify your claims and ensure this isn't some trick." Zorax nodded. "I anticipated as much." He produced a data chip from his pocket. This contains technical specifications for our most advanced shield systems and energy weapons. Consider it a show of good faith." Thompson took the chip, turning it over in his fingers. He looked up at Zorax, his expression hardening with resolve. "Very well. We accept your offer, Zorax, but know that we'll be watching you closely. One hint of betrayal, and this alliance is over." Zorax inclined his head. "I would expect nothing less." In the weeks that followed, Zorax worked closely with the EDF's brightest minds. He pored over schematics and simulations, guiding them as they sought to reverse engineer Iridian technology and integrate it with their own designs. Thompson was a constant presence, his keen intellect and relentless drive pushing the project forward at a breakneck pace. Under his leadership, human engineers developed new alloys and power systems that surpassed anything they had previously achieved. The crown jewel of their efforts was the EDS Indefatigable, a warship that represented the pinnacle of human-Iridian collaboration. Its hull was sleek and angular, sheathed in an advanced composite that could shrug off all but the most powerful energy weapons. Its armament was equally impressive, with banks of particle cannons and missile launchers that could reduce an enemy fleet to molten slag. As the Indefatigable and its sister ships took shape in the EDF's secret shipyards, Zorax felt a growing sense of unease. He knew that their actions would not go unnoticed for long. The Iridian Empire and the Kryn Consortium had vast intelligence networks, and they would soon discover the burgeoning alliance between humanity and their former agent. Zorax stood on the bridge of the Indefatigable, watching as Thompson and his crew put the ship through its paces. The viewscreen showed a field of glittering stars, peaceful and serene. But Zorax knew that somewhere out there, their enemies were gathering, preparing for the conflict that would decide the fate of the galaxy. He turned to Thompson, his expression grim. "They'll be coming for us soon. The Iridians, the Kryn, they won't let this stand." Thompson nodded, his jaw set. "Let them come, we'll be ready for them." And with those words, the stage was set for a war that would shake the very foundations of the universe, a war in which the survival of humanity and the future of the galaxy itself would hang in the balance. The Iridian Emperor's eyes narrowed as he studied the latest intelligence reports on the humans' rapid advancements. The primitive species that had once been beneath their notice was now a growing thorn in their side. The Imperial Council chamber buzzed with heated discussions, the tension palpable. "This cannot stand," the Emperor declared, his voice cutting through the chatter. "The humans have grown too bold, too quickly. We must strike now before they become a true threat to our dominion." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the gathered councillors. Admiral Zavok stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "My lord, I have a plan to crush the humans once and for all. Grant me the command of our finest warships, and I will personally lead the assault on their pathetic Earth and its colonies." The Emperor considered for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, Admiral. You have my authorization. Assemble the fleet and depart as soon as possible. We will teach these upstarts the folly of challenging the Iridian Empire." Zarvox bowed, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "As you command, my Emperor." In the EDF headquarters on Earth, alarms blared as Zorax burst into the command center. Daniel Thompson and the other officers turned to face him, their expressions tense. "They're coming," Zorax announced grimly. "The Iridians have dispatched a massive fleet led by Admiral Zarvox himself. They mean to wipe us out in one decisive blow." Thompson's jaw tightened. "How long do we have?" "Days at most. Zarvox is not one to delay." The room erupted into a frenzy of activity as the EDF leadership began issuing orders and coordinating defenses. Thompson pulled Zorax aside, his voice low. "You're certain of this information?" Zorax met his gaze steadily. "I stake my life on it. My sources within the Empire are reliable." Thompson nodded. "Then we have no choice. We must prepare for the fight of our lives." As the EDF forces mobilized, engineers worked around the clock to outfit their ships with the latest Iridian-derived technologies. Pilots and soldiers trained tirelessly, honing their skills and studying the weaknesses of their enemy. Zorax provided invaluable insights into Iridian tactics and vulnerabilities, helping the humans devise unconventional strategies to level the playing field. When the Iridian fleet finally emerged from hyperspace on the outskirts of Earth's solar system, they were met with an unexpected sight. Instead of the primitive, defenseless world they had anticipated, they found themselves facing a well-prepared and heavily fortified human presence. The EDS Indefatigable and its sister ships, gleaming with advanced alloys and bristling with powerful weapons, formed the backbone of the EDF's defense. Swarms of agile fighter craft, piloted by the best and brightest of humanity, darted around the larger vessels, ready to engage the enemy. Aboard his flagship, Admiral Zavok sneered at the display. So the primates have some teeth after all. No matter, they are still no match for the might of the Iridian Empire. He ordered his ships to advance, confident in their superiority. But as the battle commenced, it quickly became apparent that the humans were not the pushovers he had expected. The EDF ships, enhanced with reverse-engineered Iridian technology, proved to be remarkably resilient, their shields absorbing the brunt of the enemy fire. The human fighters, armed with specialized anti-Iridian weaponry, swarmed the larger enemy vessels, exploiting weaknesses in their defenses that Zorax had identified. Iridian ships began to fall, their hulls breached, and their crews left to the cold mercy of space. On the bridge of the Indefatigable, Thompson watched the battle unfold, his eyes hard. Zorax stood beside him, offering advice and insights as the fight progressed. "Target their shield emitters," Zorax urged. "They're vulnerable when they're cycling power to their weapons." Thompson relayed the order, and the EDF ships concentrated their fire on the weak points in the Iridian defenses. More enemy vessels crumbled under the onslaught, their once mighty armada reduced to a shadow of its former self. Faced with mounting losses and the unanticipated ferocity of the human resistance, Admiral Zavok was forced to confront a bitter reality. The Iridian fleet, the pride of the Empire, was on the verge of a humiliating defeat at the hands of a species they had once dismissed as primitive and inconsequential. With his ships in disarray and his forces rapidly dwindling, Zavok had no choice but to order a retreat. The battered remains of the Iridian armada limped away from Earth, their dreams of a swift and decisive victory shattered. News of the battle spread like wildfire across the galaxy, and the implications were clear. The humans, once considered a minor nuisance, had shown themselves to be a force to be reckoned with. The balance of power was shifting, and the Iridian Empire's grip on the galaxy was beginning to slip. In the aftermath of the battle, the EDF celebrated their hard-fought victory, but Thompson and Zorax knew that this was only the beginning. The Iridians would not take this defeat lightly, and they would undoubtedly return with even greater force. Moreover, the battle had not gone unnoticed by the other major players in the galactic arena. The Kryn Consortium, sensing an opportunity to strike at their weakened Iridian rivals, began to mobilize their own forces. The stage was set for a conflict that would engulf the entire galaxy, a war in which the fate of countless worlds would hang in the balance. As the EDF began to prepare for the challenges ahead, Thompson turned to Zorax, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "We couldn't have done this without you. Your knowledge and insight have been invaluable." Zorax inclined his head. "We're in this together now, for better or worse. The future of both our species depends on our success." Together, the unlikely allies looked out at the stars, knowing that the true test of their strength and resolve was yet to come. The road ahead would be long and perilous, but they were determined to see it through, no matter the cost. The sleek black stealth ship glided through the void of space, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it virtually invisible to the Kryn's sensors. Inside the cramped cockpit, Daniel Thompson and his hand-picked team of EDF operatives sat in tense silence, their faces illuminated by the glow of the control panels. "We're approaching the coordinates Zorax provided," Thompson said, his voice low and steady. "Prepare for infiltration." The team nodded, checking their weapons and gear one final time. They knew the risks of this mission, but the stakes were too high to ignore. If the Kryn succeeded in weaponizing dark energy, the consequences would be catastrophic. As the ship neared the Kryn base, Thompson guided it into a small, unguarded hangar bay. The team disembarked, moving swiftly and silently through the dimly lit corridors. They encountered minimal resistance thanks to the detailed layout Zorax had provided. Finally, they reached the heart of the base, the research labs. Thompson hacked the security system, and the doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, they found a scene straight out of a nightmare. Towering machines pulsed with an eerie purple glow, and containment fields struggled to hold swirling vortexes of pure darkness. Scientists in protective suits scurried about, monitoring readings and making adjustments. "My God," Thompson breathed. "They've actually done it. They've harnessed dark energy." The team quickly set to work, planting explosives and downloading data from the Kryn's computers. But just as they were about to make their escape, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. "We've been detected," one of the operatives shouted as Kryn soldiers flooded into the lab, weapons blazing. Thompson and his team fought back, using their advanced Iridian-enhanced weapons to cut down the enemy forces. But the Kryn kept coming, threatening to overwhelm them through sheer numbers. "Get out of here," Thompson yelled to his team. "I'll hold them off." The operatives hesitated, but Thompson's fierce glare brooked no argument. They reluctantly retreated, making their way back to the stealth ship with the precious data in hand. Thompson turned to face the oncoming horde, his rifle spitting plasma bolts into their ranks. He fought with a savage determination, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Just as he was about to be overrun, a barrage of energy beams tore into the Kryn soldiers from behind. Thompson whirled to see Zorax charging into the fray, flanked by a contingent of Iridian loyalists. "Thought you could use a hand," Zorax quipped, as he took up position beside Thompson. Together, the unlikely allies fought their way out of the base, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. They barely made it back to their ships before the explosives detonated, reducing the research labs to rubble. As they raced away from the base, Thompson turned to Zorax, a grim expression on his face. The Kryn's dark energy weapon. If they manage to rebuild it... "They won't," Zorax said firmly. "We'll make sure of that. But first, we need to get this information back to the EDF and the Iridian Imperial Command. They need to know what we're up against." Thompson nodded, his jaw set with determination. The final battle was coming, and the fate of the galaxy would be decided on the front lines of this war. He just hoped that the combined might of humanity and the Iridian loyalists would be enough to stop the Kryn and their terrifying new weapon. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance as the unlikely alliance between the EDF and the Iridian Empire prepared to launch their desperate assault on the Kryn Consortium's research facility. Admiral Daniel Thompson stood on the bridge of his flagship, the EDS Indefatigable, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the enemy's formidable defenses. "All ships prepare to engage on my command," Thompson said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Remember, our primary objective is to destroy that dark energy weapon before it can be used against us." Beside him, Zorax nodded grimly, his own forces arrayed in formation alongside the human fleet. "My ground teams are ready to infiltrate the base and secure the prototype. We'll buy you as much time as we can." As the Allied Armada approached the Kryn stronghold, a massive enemy fleet emerged from behind the planet's shadow, weapons charged and ready for battle. At its head was the notorious warlord Zarthak's dreadnought, a monstrous vessel bristling with advanced weaponry. The space between the two fleets erupted in a maelstrom of energy beams, missiles, and exploding starships as the battle commenced. The Kryn's superior numbers and technology initially gave them the upper hand, their weapons tearing through the Allied formations with devastating efficiency. "Evasive maneuvers," Thompson barked as a salvo of plasma torpedoes streaked towards the Indefatigable. The ship shuddered as its advanced shields absorbed the brunt of the impact, but warning lights flashed across the bridge, indicating the strain on their defenses. Undeterred, Thompson rallied his forces, using the Indefatigable's powerful energy weapons to carve a path through the Kryn's lines. The human and Iridian ships fought with a desperate tenacity, their combined tactics and technology slowly turning the tide of battle. Meanwhile, on the surface of the planet, Zorax led his ground team in a daring assault on the research facility. They fought their way through hordes of Kryn warriors and automated defense systems, the air thick with the smell of ozone and burning metal. As they neared the central laboratory, a massive explosion rocked the complex, sending debris and bodies flying. Zorax looked up to see Zarthak's holographic image flickering to life on a nearby screen, a cruel smile on his alien features. "Foolish humans and Iridians," he gloated, "you are too late. Behold the power of the dark energy weapon." The screen shifted to show a massive pulsating device, its core glowing with an eerie purple light. Zorax's eyes widened in horror as he realized the implications. Back in space, Thompson watched in disbelief as a blinding beam of energy erupted from the planet's surface, engulfing a dozen allied ships in a single devastating blast. The fleet reeled from the unexpected attack, their formation fracturing as panic spread through the ranks. "All ships fall back and regroup," Thompson commanded, his mind racing as he tried to formulate a plan. He turned to his communications officer. "Get me a line to Zorax now." Moments later, the Iridian's face appeared on the view screen, his expression grim. "Thompson, the weapon is fully operational. We don't have much time." Thompson nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Then we'll have to take it out directly. Can your team disable the prototype?" Zorax hesitated, then shook his head. "Not without getting close, and the Kryn have it heavily guarded." "For then we'll have to give you an opening," Thompson said, a plan forming in his mind. "We'll draw their fire and clear a path for your team. It's our only chance." As the two leaders finalized their desperate gambit, the fate of the galaxy hung by a thread, the outcome of the battle resting on the shoulders of the unlikely allies who had once been bitter enemies. Thompson and Zorax charged through the corridors of the Kryn Command Center, their weapons blazing as they cut down the enemy forces that stood in their way. The strike team moved with precision and speed, their years of combat experience guiding their every step. They knew that the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders, and failure was not an option. As they approached the control room, the resistance intensified. Kryn warriors poured out from every direction, their weapons spitting deadly energy bolts. Thompson and Zorax took cover behind a shattered wall, their backs pressed against the cold metal as they returned fire. "We're running out of time," Thompson shouted over the din of battle. "We need to get to those controls." Zorax nodded grimly, his face etched with determination. "I'll draw their fire, you make a run for it." Before Thompson could protest, Zorax leaped out from behind cover, his rifle blazing as he charged towards the enemy lines. The Kryn warriors focused their attention on the Iridian, their weapons tearing into his armor. Thompson seized the opportunity and sprinted towards the control room, his heart pounding in his chest. He burst through the doors, only to find himself face to face with Zarthak, the notorious Kryn warlord. "So the great Daniel Thompson comes to die," Zarthak sneered, his eyes glinting with malice. "I will enjoy crushing you beneath my heel." The two warriors collided in a brutal hand-to-hand combat, their fists and feet striking with devastating force. Zarthak was a formidable opponent, his strength and speed enhanced by Kryn biotechnology. Thompson fought with all the skill and determination he could muster, but he knew he was outmatched. Suddenly, Zorax burst into the room, his armor shattered and his body bleeding from a dozen wounds. With a roar of defiance, he launched himself at Zarthak, tackling the warlord to the ground. "Go!" Zorax shouted, his voice strained with pain. "Destroy the weapon!" Thompson raced to the control panel, his fingers flying over the keys as he searched for a way to stop the dark energy weapon from firing. But as he delved deeper into the system, a sinking realization dawned on him. "Zorax," he said, his voice heavy with resignation. "The only way to stop the weapon is to overload its core. It'll destroy the entire facility. Zorak, still grappling with Zarthak, met Thompson's gaze. In that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. They both knew what had to be done. "Do it," Zorak said, his voice firm. "For the galaxy." With a heavy heart, Thompson initiated the overload sequence. Alarms blared and warning lights flashed as the countdown began. Thompson opened a comm channel to the strike team. "All units evacuate immediately. The facility is going to blow." As the strike team began their desperate retreat, Thompson and Zorak stood side by side, facing down Zarthak and his elite guards. They fought with the strength of warriors who knew they were already dead, their weapons flashing in the dimming light. "It's been an honor, Zorax," Thompson said, his voice thick with emotion. "Likewise, Daniel," Zorax replied, a faint smile on his lips. "Let's give them hell." And so they fought. Two unlikely allies united in their final stand as the timer ticked down to oblivion. The dark energy weapon exploded in a blinding flash of light, consuming the facility and everyone within it. The galaxy was left reeling in the aftermath of the devastating war. The losses were immense on all sides, human, Iridian, and Kryn alike. Planets had been ravaged, fleets decimated, and countless lives extinguished in the brutal conflict. But even as the survivors began the long, arduous process of rebuilding, the scars ran far deeper than the physical destruction. For the Earth Defense Force, the war had been a baptism by fire. The once-fledgling organization had emerged as a major power in the galactic community, its soldiers battle-hardened, and its leadership tempered by the crucible of conflict. With the Kryn threat diminished and the Iridian Empire weakened, the EDF took on the mantle of maintaining peace and stability across the stars. On the Iridian homeworld, a somber mood prevailed. The Empire had been humbled, not only by the losses they had suffered, but by the betrayal of their own leaders. Many of the once proud Iridians now questioned the very foundations of their society, the beliefs and values that had driven them to seek dominion over the galaxy. In the halls of power, a new generation of leaders vowed to chart a different course, one of introspection, reform, and cooperation with the other races. However, not all Iridians were ready to accept this new reality. In the shadows, a faction of hardline loyalists gathered, seething with resentment and bitterness. They viewed the alliance with the humans as a betrayal of everything the Empire had ever stood for, a shameful capitulation to a lesser species. At their head stood Zardex, the son of the late Admiral Zarvox, his heart filled with a burning desire for vengeance. Zardex and his followers began to plot and scheme, reaching out to other discontented factions across the galaxy. They found ready allies among the remnants of the Kryn Consortium, those who had managed to escape the destruction of their dark energy research facility. Together, they dreamed of overthrowing the EDF, of reasserting Iridian dominance and subjugating the other races beneath their heel. As the months passed, troubling reports began to reach the EDF and the Iridian leadership. Outposts on the fringes of explored space were being attacked, their garrisons massacred, and their facilities ransacked. At first, the incidents were dismissed as the work of pirates or separatist groups, but as the attacks grew more frequent and more coordinated, a pattern began to emerge. The EDF and the Iridians were forced to confront the unthinkable. A new threat was rising from the ashes of the old, a shadowy cabal of extremists and fanatics determined to plunge the galaxy back into the flames of war. Desperate to uncover the truth and prevent another catastrophic conflict, the two former enemies once again found themselves working side by side, their forces stretched thin as they raced to investigate the attacks and root out the conspirators. What they discovered sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Zardex had managed to salvage the remains of the dark energy weapon, the very same technology that had brought the galaxy to the brink of annihilation. Worse still, he was perilously close to unlocking its secrets and rebuilding it on an even grander scale. His ultimate goal was nothing less than the complete destruction of Earth and the heart of the EDF. A desperate race against time ensued as EDF and Iridian forces clashed with Zardex's fanatical followers in a series of brutal battles across the stars. The fighting was intense and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The EDF, still reeling from the losses of the previous war, found itself pushed to the brink of collapse, its ranks decimated and its resources stretched to the breaking point. In the end, the dark energy weapon was destroyed, and Zardex was captured, his dreams of vengeance shattered. But the cost was high. The EDF lost many of its best and brightest, including several of Thompson's closest friends and allies. The Iridian Empire, already weakened by the previous conflict, was left teetering on the brink of collapse, its future uncertain. As the dust settled and the fallen were mourned, the survivors were left to ponder the bitter lessons of the conflict. The scars of the past, it seemed, were not so easily healed. The cycle of violence and retribution threatened to consume them all, an endless feedback loop of destruction and suffering. But even in the depths of despair, there was still hope. The EDF and the Iridian Empire, both forever changed by the sacrifices and losses they had endured, knew that they could not let the darkness win. They had to find a way to move forward, to build a better future for all the peoples of the galaxy. It would not be easy. The road ahead was long and fraught with peril, the ghosts of the past still haunting their every step. But they had to try, for the sake of all those who had given their lives in the cause of freedom and justice. They had to stand together, united in their resolve, knowing that the price of peace was eternal vigilance and the willingness to fight against tyranny and oppression, no matter the cost. For in the end, it was the only way to honor the memory of the fallen and ensure that their sacrifices had not been in vain. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.